Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend, Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
Man, what a win last night. What a crazy
What a
game
win.
last night. I mean, I think that was their second largest comeback of the season. They were down 19 at half. And it felt like this is kind of what I was thinking. Domantas Sabonis has, I don't know, how many points did he have at half? Did he have any points at half? He did.
I don't know. I mean, he only had 8 for the game.
If he did, he had 2. But I was like, Sabonis has no points. He has this double-double record that is like, felt like it was going to last for eternity. And I was like, and he's not even impacting the game at all. Like this is really bad news for the Thunder, who just played with very little pop, is how I would put it, throughout the game. And somehow they're able to, I mean, they were ridiculous coming out in the third quarter.
Well, it was funny watching it back because once you know they win, then I'm going back to watch that first half. And It's like, you know what? They were really good on Sabonis. Chet was awesome.
Chet,
yeah, defensively.
yeah,
Because Chet was not getting bullied. I mean, Demonis was trying to.
He was 0 of 2 at halftime.
Yeah.
0 of 2 at halftime.
And so many of that was either them just denying him the ball. Like there was the play where J-Dub fronted him and then stole the entry pass, like jumped super high in the air, stole the entry pass.
Mm-hmm.
There was the play where he was trying to back down Chet, and then Dort comes around from the side, steals the ball from him.
Mm-hmm.
And then just when it was one-on-one, like Chet versus Sabonis, we've seen in the past, Sabonis can move Chet out of the way. He was not as successful at that. And at one point, Chet baited him into the charge. And so that right there, I mean, that's 3 turnovers. He had 5 for the game. And he just, it didn't feel like he was really involved all that much. The only time he looked comfortable was when he was on the perimeter, doing his DHOs, throwing passes to cutters. But it didn't look like the Sabonis that we're used to. And I have to give the Thunder credit for that. And the only reason why I didn't really notice it the first time watching was just because they kept hitting so many damn threes that it didn't matter, Sabonis was able to have that poor of a first half, and they were just so incredible from 3-point range that it just didn't matter at all. And so, like you were saying, you're just kind of thinking at halftime, like, man, once Sabonis gets going, like, we might be cooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were not. It was honestly a fun game. Shout out to Mike Beckham, who I got to sit with courtside last night, and I've sat close before, like at the scorers table, but it is like a completely different experience sitting actually courtside right there at the corner. So shout out to Mike, who runs the company Simple Modern, who gave us these awesome cups. I will just say a company that you can feel proud to support. I will say that. They're amazing. But it was such a cool experience getting to be like in the crowd for that game, because the way that the crowd was reacting during that third quarter comeback and the fourth quarter comeback was like, it felt, I don't want to say it felt playoff-esque. I feel like that's probably overused a little bit, but like the crowd was really into it.
Yeah.
During the game. And there were like definitely points where like you could actually like feel the momentum shifting like on the court with just like almost the posture of the players. I was really impressed with the way the Thunder were able to execute. And obviously it all hinged on Shea and the way that he looked. And he talked about this post game that he hadn't felt 100% since that Utah game at home a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he definitely feels 100% tonight. And there were a couple times where I thought, like, does he look 100%? I don't know if he felt that way. But he said, like, I feel 100%. And definitely in that third quarter and in the fourth, when he was just relentlessly attacking. He was getting mauled going to the hoop and not getting calls. And I know he shot a ton of free throws. but I felt like he probably could have shot 35 free throws in this game with the amount of times he was driving to the hoop. I mean, he was relentless and like obviously like the reason the Thunder were able to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I do think if you did notice anything in terms of him still not looking 100%, you got to give some credit to the Kings, because for a team that we traditionally think of as just not that great of a defensive team,
Yeah.
man, when you have Davion Mitchell and Keon Ellis out there,
Dude,
like
Keon,
all of a sudden they are kind of an impressive like perimeter defense team.
totally.
And give Keon Ellis a lot of credit, man. I mean, not only was it by far his greatest offensive game. I mean, he took 15
15
threes,
threes. And
8 of 15. His previous high was taking 9 threes in a game. So he beat that by 6. But also, like, both he and Davion were just really good at not biting on SGA's pump fakes. And
yeah,
so there were multiple plays where Shea was trying, like he was trying to bait them into a foul, and it
yep.
just took so much longer than it might have taken against like a normal defender. Like I thought those guys were doing really a good job, like as best as they can do in a game where Shea still scores 40 points.
Yeah, Keon was amazing. I don't know if you could see this on the broadcast, but like anytime that he's like getting ready to do something, his eyes just like bug out of his head.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was really just like fun to watch. He was incredible. Defensively, like you wonder, like, oh man, like the Kings are actually like they're good on defense, and they have been good on defense.
Yeah, I looked it up. So since he became a regular part of their rotation, which was March 6th, so the last 19 games, Sacramento's been 7th in defense, and they've been 19th for the season. And
Yeah.
I bet if you took it before 3-6, I bet they were like 24th in defense.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And so I think it's the combination of both him and Davion Mitchell, who was completely out of the rotation early in the season.
Yeah.
And because of injuries and partly just because he's playing better, has become a regular part of their rotation as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you take out Monk and Herter and you replace them with those two guys, and like all of a sudden they're a lot better defensively than we are used to.
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt. He was awesome. I felt like obviously you feel good for Thunder winning, but I felt a little bad for Keon because like he was having like almost this out of body experience. He had 6 threes in the first half. You know, he was incredible, and then like leaves that game with an L. And he had some really bad turnovers. You could tell that he felt like this is the Keon Ellis game, because there were like a few plays down the stretch where he took a shot that was like, that is not a Keon Ellis shot. And
and then there was the one that kind of finished the game with 30 seconds left where he had the jump pass.
The jump pass was bad.
And right when he jumped, you're like, where are you going with this? And he threw it away.
Yeah. Yeah, it was rough. There's some weird officiating in this game. I don't know. I'm sure it played out this way on TV too, but Colby Jones getting the foul call when Josh Giddey basically like barely touched his hair and they call him a foul. Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
But it's like Giddey is just behind Colby Jones as he's taking this kind of wild shot, and he just kind of swipes his hand, and it just like Colby Jones has long hair, and he hit just barely hit the top of his hair, and they call the foul, and Josh is like losing his mind, as was Mark, and he is like violently doing the challenge call. He's like, challenge it. And Mark had already used his challenge, and he had lost the challenge on a block charge call. And Mark is like, I don't have one. It was just really funny to see that play out. But like there were some weird calls in this game.
Well, the call that I thought was going to cost them the game was the out of bounds call.
Out of bounds, yes.
When they didn't again have a challenge.
I know.
So you're just like, well, I guess that might just be it. There's nothing we can do. And you're watching the replay, like clearly goes off of Sabonis's thigh.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing you can do. But then they take the ball out, nothing happens. OKC gets the rebound. And then they only showed it once, the like very next play or maybe 2 plays later, when it looked like another questionable out of bounds call that this time went to OKC.
It went to OKC. Yeah, it was on the other end. I couldn't see clearly from where I was
they
at.
only showed it once, and it was a bad angle, so I couldn't really tell. But maybe that was a makeup call.
I think they knew. It's funny because like you can like see the expression on the officials' faces during these, and like you knew that they got it wrong on a couple of occasions because they showed the replay of that Colby Jones like non-foul, and you
Yeah.
can see on like all their faces like whoops as he's like shooting free throws, and so you could see like the makeup call happen in real time at the other end. They're like, okay, really the Thunder deserve to have the ball, so we're just going to give them the ball whether or not because it was probably 50-50 and one that you could probably review, but yeah, they gave it right back to him. So yeah,
but it was the end of that game was like very tense because there was that point at the 4-minute mark where the Thunder turned it over 3 trips in a row. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like we come all the way back. And then we're just going to blow this like this.
Yeah.
But by that point, the Kings offense had really just, it lost all the momentum from the first half. And the types of shots they were getting, like that shot that De'Aaron Fox got late in the game where he comes off a screen, but Dort sticks right with him. And he's shooting like a kind of like falling to his side 3-pointer. And it was early in the shot clock and it missed. I think that was when it was tied 105-105. And they just could never make the Thunder pay. Like Keegan missed a 3, Fox missed that 3. They had turnover of their own. And then Chet picked up those 2 fouls on Sabonis, which, you wish he could hit his free throws. He was only 3 of 6 last night, and he only went 2 of 4 there in the final minutes. But at least it was like slowing down the momentum, got a couple free throws out of it. But yeah, it really felt like they were going to give it away. And then with like a minute left, everything just started to go their way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could. Yeah, it was. It took. It didn't feel like they had the game really until they got to like the 110-105 with 35 seconds left after Shea made those 2 free throws. Then you felt like, okay, like they have this one. That was right after the De'Aaron Fox pull-up 3 that he missed. That felt, all night it felt like he was getting whatever he wanted and was going to make almost every 3.
Well, the crazy thing about those threes, like, because there have been games, and the Thunder have been on the other side of this too, where a team is just like stupid hot in the first half, and you're just thinking, okay, eventually this will settle down, and maybe this will become a game. But it was dramatic when it comes to that game. Like the Kings shot 31 threes in the first half. I looked it up. Only 3 teams this season have taken more than 31 threes in a half.
Yeah.
So that was like unique even for the modern NBA where teams can, take 33s and a half. Like that was really unique. So for them to go 14 of 31 in that first half in a half where OKC is going 4 of 18. They're getting outscored by 30 points just from the 3-point line.
Yep.
And for them to come back and basically flip it. They didn't take 31 in the second half. Okay, but OKC was 7 of 12, and then the Kings were 3 of 17.
I felt like they had like 10 of those on one possession. I think they did take 3 threes on one possession. It was just like offensive rebound 3, offensive rebound 3, offensive rebound 3, and they missed all of them.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the story of the second half. Like the first half was about, oh my gosh, this team is shooting 50% from 3, taking an absurd amount of threes. The second half was, okay, they're finally missing them, but now they're grabbing every offensive rebound, but not making the Thunder pay.
21.
Yeah, and 13 of those were in the second half. But the thing was that, like, as good as they were grabbing those bounds, like they actually weren't really making the Thunder pay as much as they should have. Like they had 18 second chance points. Which, given how many offensive rebounds they got, you would expect that to be like a little bit higher than that. They got 21 offensive rebounds.
21.
And so they only generated 18 points out of all of those second chances. So
yeah, that's a huge missed opportunity for them. They took 16 more shots than the Thunder in this game. 16. Yeah. You get 16 more shots. They only made 6 more shots than the Thunder. And the difference was Part of it was the free throw line, and then the Thunder. I mean, they just executed so much better than they did. I don't know if you listen to Deuce and Mo. I was listening to their live show last night when I got home, and it had Deuce and Mo fighting, which is just bad. Like it's bad whenever.
What were they mad about?
They're mad about all the threes. They're like they settled for too many threes.
I mean, they did take 58, I think.
58 threes. They were really mad about the threes and the turnovers. Yeah, they had 17 turnovers. The Thunder had 13. 13 is not that's a little high for even OKC. But 11 steals for the Thunder is another like good stat for them. Really this was a Shea game. I thought Giddey had some nice moments, but overall not the greatest game from Josh. He had a kind of a crazy stat line. 4 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, a steal, 2 blocks. And a +2 in his 21 minutes. He did have 5 fouls, which I think is part of the reason why he didn't play just a ton. J-Dub was back in the lineup. It was good to have both those guys back in the lineup. He was only 11, 6 and 4 with the steal. And this one,
I thought he looked fine though. Like he looked good getting to his spots. He just wasn't as impactful as we were kind of have come to expect.
He did have that shot down the stretch though that I thought was going to miss, and
like the little runner.
Yeah, that hit off the left side of the rim. That I thought was like, oh, this is just too far to the left, and it just spun somehow back in.
I think that was coming off of the 3 straight turnovers. I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was because he made that at 3:06. So they had just come off of 3 straight trips with a turnover, and then you get that shot, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" but then he made it.
I know. Yeah, I cannot believe he made that. That was really good. Chet had statistically a good game. 15, 9, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Like obviously that's great. Only 9 shots, 15 points, 2 of 5 from 3. But this was one of the games that I would point to that if you were a voter searching for somebody else to put on the all defensive team, I would point to this game and say, I would actually point to it for both Dort and Chet, specifically Dort in the second half, and then Chet throughout the whole game. I thought just held his own against Domas. And I just thought he did not get bullied. He did not get pushed around. He was able to contest him at the rim. I thought he played an incredible game. For the starters, he had a team high +11. Aaron Wiggins was a +15 on the night, who also had a really nice game off the bench. But Chet, an underrated Chet game for sure. Because you look at the box score and it's like, oh, okay, he had a fine game. I thought he had an incredible game.
Because your lasting memory is him missing those free throws down the stretch, and so you're kind of thinking like, oh, he must have not had, like, it didn't feel leaving that game like he had an amazing game. But yeah, watching it back, like the defense on Sabonis especially, because that is one of those guys that people will talk about, and like the narrative, a couple months ago was, the Thunder played the Lakers. Anthony Davis was great against Chet, but then just a few weeks later, Anthony Davis goes up against Sabonis, and Sabonis absolutely destroys him, which has been like a theme for him. But then we have a game like this where we can see that Chet can totally hang with Sabonis.
Yeah.
And part of that, maybe that's just like an off night for Sabonis. He obviously can be better than that. This was, if you just look at like pure statistical output, like points, rebounds, assists, this is probably his second worst game of the season. He had one game where he put up like fewer of those stats. It was against the Rockets. But this really was an off night for him. But I really do give the Thunder a lot of credit for it. And by denying him the ball, I do think the Kings kind of settled in, to kind of encourage the Kings to settle into taking that many threes, which obviously worked the first half. But I think over the course of the game, that ended up coming back to bite them.
Yeah, last night was his lowest game score.
Was it? Okay. And some stats to back that up. OKC held Sacramento to 42.9% at the rim. 42.9% on rim attempts.
It couldn't have been only had rim attempts though, right?
It wasn't. They were super low.
Actually, it was not his worst game score. He had a worse one. He had more points in a game against the Clippers, but had a worse game score. It's his second worst game score of the season.
Okay. They only allowed 26 points in the paint. And for comparison, the Kings average 51 points in the paint per game.
That feels right. It just, I mean, obviously when you're shooting 58 threes, you're not getting into the paint as much as you would want. But yeah, it just felt like the Thunder were selling out a little bit too much in the first half to shut the paint down. And then in the second half, they made some corrections, and they got, Domas got the ball a little bit more, and like had one like post up, like back down, got all the way to the hoop, and Chet altered the shot so much that Domas ended up like airballing it over the rim. That was like, wow, like that, a month ago, 2 months ago, Domas probably would have been able to like dunk that, or at least like put it up off the glass. Yeah. But you can tell that Chet, and this is what is scary for the league, is that like Chet is getting better this year. I know offensively he's had some struggles recently and has had some stinkers offensively, but defensively is where he is like really changed the Thunder in a lot of ways. And if this is like the worst he's going to be as a defender, because he's going to get bigger, he's going to get stronger, he's going to have more experiences. It's crazy that he gets to play in the playoffs his rookie season and gets to experience that and gets to take that into the offseason, no matter like how many games they play, just to have that experience going into this offseason. It's pretty amazing, that Chet is already this good. And, it really bodes well for the Thunder's future. Not only you have Shea and J-Dub, but to have Chet, which is like this multi-tool weapon that can, I mean, if he can defend centers, that was like the big question. And I think that we felt like he was going to play center all season, and he has, but I think people still had that question of like, okay, what happens when somebody's a lot bigger on him? Well, he's starting to figure it out a little bit.
Yeah. It's been tough because he was so good early in the season, and he had some of those highlight games like the Golden State game, where he's putting up the kind of stat lines that people are freaking out about for Wemby. Like he was having those type of games.
Yeah, he did that.
And we haven't really seen a game like that in a minute. But the fact is that he's like still been a very impactful player, even despite like not putting up those types of lines. And so the fact that you have seen the ceiling and the floor is so high, that's what gets you excited, because it's like, even when he's bad, well, I mean, he has had like legitimately bad games, like the games where he doesn't do anything, where he had like 2 points, but those are pretty few and far between. His kind of like normal floor is still like very high compared to a lot of the players on the Thunder roster right now.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's played every game is probably one of the more encouraging things of this entire season that we've kind of overlooked a little bit. But the fact that he has played in all of these games, because that was the other narrative about him, outside of not being able to guard huge centers, was that, oh, this guy's just going to get hurt eventually at some point.
Yeah. He's too skinny. He's basically just going to get broken by the league.
You're going to break him, Andrew.
And what's crazy is that he had never had a major injury before this, ever. Right. And so it is good. I think that he really wants to like prove that he can be like an Iron Man, wants to play all 82. Because there's probably games in here, maybe even on that road trip, where it's like, might do you some good to sit. But I think that he really wants to play all 82. And
I'm interested to see how they handle the rest of the season now, because with that win last night, they lock in a top 3 seed. A lot's going to be decided tonight, because Minnesota is playing in Denver.
Yeah.
They're both on the second night of a back-to-back.
Yep.
Minnesota had to play the Wizards last night. Denver played Utah. I think the Utah game was on the road, so I think they both have to fly. Obviously, it's not terrible flights, but still.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Matt Moore pointed this out. It is so stupid that they avoid the men's national championship game, and now, as a result, they're having to play all of these really key playoff matchups on the second night of a back-to-back.
Yeah.
When the women's national title game, I mean, I don't know I don't know if the ratings have come out for the men's yet, but the women's probably beat the men, and
They
so
did.
like
They did. They beat them
so they went to all this trouble to avoid this national title game.
Yeah, but they do that every time though. Like
But who cares? Like, why?
It is such a Matt Moore thing to complain about, though.
I would say it's an Alex thing to complain about too, because I don't understand why they do it. Why do they defer to the NCAA
every year? They do it every year.
I know, but why? You shouldn't do something just because of tradition.
Salute the game, Al. I don't know. No. They just have always done it. I don't know. I'm not saying that they shouldn't look at changing it, but I mean, I don't know.
But it's stupid. It's making their game worse. Like this game between Minnesota and Denver is a massive game. Massive. Yeah, it is one of the biggest games of the season.
At least they're
having to play it on the second night of a back-to-back.
At least
because of the stupid NCAA tournament game.
At least it's both of them and not just one of them. Because I think it would have been more disastrous if it was like, hey, the Nuggets are on a second night of a back-to-back, or just the Timberwolves are on a second night of a back-to-back. Then it's like, oh man, like they're both disadvantaged. They're both. I mean, it's the end of the season. They've both been playing a lot. They're both tired. I mean, it's the NBA. I don't know. I don't feel that bad for them.
I feel bad for us. I don't feel bad for them.
Why do you feel bad for us?
Because we're probably not getting the best version of this game that we could possibly get.
Or maybe we'll get a better version.
Doubt it.
Because they got to watch Zach Edey.
And also like Miami had to play a double overtime game last night against Atlanta.
Yeah.
And again, not like a huge flight, but now they're having to fly back to Miami and play Dallas at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. I just think it's dumb. I think it's dumb. And I would like we talk about how this end of season is so like pointless and meaningless. And part of it is because we don't set it up, or we set it up to be pointless and meaningless. We set it up where all these games are being played with these teams exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
It's just annoying. One thing I will say though, Dean Oliver, Dean Olytics, he wrote Basketball on Paper. He did a analysis. This was back in 2019 about the win percentage by month correlating with playoff record. So basically, what months of the year matter the most in terms of predicting playoff success? And dead last was October. Makes sense. And real quick, like if this was a 1, that would be perfectly correlated. That would mean that your win percentage in this month perfectly predicts your playoff success. If it was a 0, that means it has absolutely no correlation. So October's a 0.09, very, very low. April, which we are currently in, 0.1. The games that are played in April have basically no correlation with playoff success. If you look at the months that have the highest correlation with playoff success, number 1 is February. Number 2 is November. And number 3 is December. So I always look back at this because I have to remind myself sometimes, because it has felt, even though they had a good record in March, I think they were 11-4. It did feel that like this isn't the same team that we saw earlier in the season. Yeah, like, even though they're winning games, and part of that was Shea's injury, and then J-Dub's injury, and then obviously more recently those two guys being out.
Yeah.
But we talked about Chet having some bad games in there as well. It's just a good reminder that in terms of predicting playoff success, you really should look back at the beginning of the season, like how a team played in November, and then how a team played in February, which coincides with them getting a lot of rest because February is when you have the All-Star break. Teams usually come back from All-Star break halfway through, and they're well rested, and you tend to see like the best versions of teams right around then.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Mark actually even talked about it after the game, and like admitted that like we were a little bit. He said they were like 2 points worse offensively, and then like a point worse defensively, over the last like month or so. And he just kind of like the way that he talked about it was that that teams will like he said we obviously weren't humming like we were, in December and parts of January, but he said that he felt like you're not going to get that over the course of 82 games. Like you just can't play that way the entire time. And he said that he feels like you can learn more from the times where you do slump and the times where things don't feel as easy. And so he loved it. He loved the slump. He felt like it was a learning time.
I did not love the slump. Over the last 2 weeks, they've gone 4-4, 24th in defense, compared to 8th for the season.
Yeah,
and then 11th in offense.
You can't really do a whole lot with it without J-Dub and Shea.
No, I know.
I mean, it is. I mean, it's context, but I mean, they've won 54 games.
Oh yeah, I mean they've been great. No, I'm more saying that, like, one, as I'm watching that game last night, I'm getting like anxious about it because I want them to win, while at the same time knowing that, like, whether they win this stupid meaningless April game doesn't really matter for playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't really be worrying about it this much.
Definitely.
But then at the same time, getting that win makes me feel so much better about this recent stretch they've gone through, because it's like, okay, like, at least in that second half, like, we're starting to see the return of Shea, like the Shea that we're used to.
Yeah.
We're seeing a really good defensive game from Chet. Like, we're starting to see the team get back at least a little bit to where they were, whether that was in January or February. And so it's like a double thing where I know that I shouldn't care that much, but at the same time, you want your team to look like they're starting to click going into the playoffs.
Oh yeah. I mean, if they would have lost by 20 last night.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, thank God I don't tweet like I used to, because I would have tweeted something stupid in that first half. Because I was just like, oh my God, we get these guys back and we're losing by 20.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, there's a lot of teams going through a lot of tougher stretches than we are.
Holy smokes. There are. Yeah. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back. Let's talk about the standings. Let's talk about the West and maybe some teams that are having some trouble. We'll be right back. And we're back after that quick break. Al, let's finish the show. Let's talk about the standings a little bit. As you mentioned, Minnesota's number 1 in the West. Nuggets 2, Thunder 3. Those 3 are locked into the top 3, and we will know the order in the coming days. That I think it's going to be this Nuggets Wolves game, though, that is going to probably decide it, because they're both playing really well. And Towns is going to come back soon for Minnesota, but man, we talked about it on Slam and Jam a couple weeks ago. It just feels like inevitable because they've been so good. They actually have the best net rating in the Western Conference now. They've been really, really good even without him. You had Ant Edwards scoring 50 last night, which honestly, like, it's funny because I didn't even factor in the fact that Ant Edwards' contract is going to go up because he's going to make All NBA. Like, he's going to make one of the All NBA teams, and he's going to get the super duper max. And that number that I was even playing with a few weeks ago is going to be even bigger now. I think it's like 7 million more, which is crazy to think about. But it feels like that's where we're at. You still, if you're a Thunder fan, you're rooting for the Nuggets to win because you want it to be Nuggets, Wolves, Thunder is the way that you want it to land, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because whoever wins this game tonight will have a 2-game lead just in the win column on OKC. Yeah. So I don't know how realistic it is for OKC to get the 1 seed at this point, since one of those teams has to win tonight. They would obviously need to win out. They play Spurs, Bucks, Mavericks, which, by the way, that Bucks game now, Giannis is likely going to be out. Strained his calf last night.
Oh yeah, he's definitely not playing in that game.
So we're looking at Spurs game, who, the Spurs have been actually pretty good lately. So that's not going to be a pushover game at all. And it's on the second night of a back-to-back tonight. So we'll see about that one.
Back for them too. Was Matt Moore mad about that one?
True. He should be if he's not. Although I think Wemby might not play. So maybe.
Oh, is that true?
I think I saw someone say that he was questionable.
That would super suck.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, he's questionable.
Boo!
Back.
Boo-hoo! That is so lame.
What do you want, Andrew? I mean, honestly,
where is he listed as questionable at? They haven't submitted that to the NBA yet. Who said that?
I don't know, Andrew.
I don't know.
I saw it somewhere.
Okay. Well, they haven't submitted it yet, but I mean, I believe you. I believe that maybe he wouldn't play on a back.
Someone I trusted said something
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And then they play the Mavs, which at this point the Mavs feel pretty locked into the 5th seed.
Yeah, they feel locked in. Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, that last game might be a rest game for both of them. That was a huge win by the Clippers last night, because if they hadn't won that, maybe you could imagine a scenario where Dallas could have gotten all the way up to 4th. But at this point, they're 2 games back of the Clippers. So
yeah,
that was a pretty huge win by the Clippers, who have won 4 in a row to kind of hold off Dallas during this final stretch.
Yep.
But yeah, that's like the most exciting thing to me, is that Dallas has separated themselves. There's zero chance OKC is going to play Dallas, most likely. Famous last words. But they have a 2-game lead on the Pelicans.
Yeah.
So it's looking like it's going to be Pelicans or Suns, most likely.
Yeah.
Suns. And I believe no, those teams don't play each other. Suns play Clippers, second night of the back-to-back tonight in LA. At Kings, at Timberwolves. That's tough.
That's really
3
tough.
road games.
Because the Wolves will still be fighting for 1.
They will. And the Kings will still be fighting to stay out of the 9-10.
Yeah.
Because they are now only half game up on the Lakers. And then the Pelicans, though, they have a tough one, too. They have at Kings, at Warriors, and then Lakers at home to finish the season.
Wow.
So those are
all
2.
All could be meaningful.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, between those 2 teams, I mean, you watch a game like last night against the Clippers, where they're down at one point like 35-4 or whatever it was, and you're like, okay, I wouldn't mind playing the Suns. This team appears to be broken.
You can play the team that only had Drew Eubanks score in the first quarter.
Yeah, but at the same time, you do worry not about them like clicking, but more just about like, what if Booker goes insane?
Just Durant, Booker. Yeah, it's just
because even though OKC is 3-0 against Phoenix this season, Booker played in one of those games.
Yeah, I know.
So we haven't really. I mean, well, we did. The most recent matchup where OKC actually beat them pretty handily was with all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, but Book was so bad. If you would have watched that game and said, who are the stars in this game, there's no chance you would have named Devin Booker. There's no way.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm still pretty torn on which of those teams I would want.
Yeah.
I feel like they've always just matched up pretty well with the Pelicans.
Yeah.
And following some of the Pelicans accounts, their on-off numbers with Valanciunas have actually been pretty good. And so knowing that he has been important for them, but then hasn't been good in these Thunder matchups, like just hasn't really been impactful, that kind of makes you feel good, because it then forces them to go smaller, and their small lineups just haven't been amazing.
No.
I definitely would not be a sweep. I think the Pelicans would for sure win a couple games.
I just don't know if there's any sweeps in the West.
Yeah, I don't know. If maybe the Kings somehow made it in.
Yeah, maybe Denver could sweep. I mean, Denver swept the Lakers in the West Finals last year, so Denver would be like the only candidate. Like I wouldn't. I don't think Minnesota will sweep somebody. I don't think the Thunder will. It's not insane to think the Mavs could sweep the Clippers. But I don't think it would happen. I don't think it would happen.
I'm swinging back around on that series. I think I'm going to pick the Clippers.
Yeah. God.
If I know that Kawhi's back, I think I'm going to pick the Clippers.
Yeah, we don't know that, though. He didn't play last night.
Yeah. No, my dream scenario right now is, for other teams, is that Phoenix ends up in that 7-8.
Mm-hmm.
The Kings drop to the 9-10, which is not out of the realm of possibility now.
Yeah.
So that we get Lakers Suns as the 7-8 matchup. Oh my
gosh. Durant versus LeBron, it would be just electric. And
then LeBron wins, so they're the 7 seed.
Yeah.
And then we get Suns Warriors in the second. That is kind of my personal dream scenario.
Yeah, that would rock.
No offense to the Kings. but which it does suck for the Kings. I mean, they're going to end up. So their last 3 games, they've got a couple tough ones. They got the Suns and the Pelicans both at home, and then they got the Trailblazers. So I feel pretty confident saying they're going to get to at least 46 wins.
Yeah.
Last year, Andrew, they won 48 games. So they're going to win 2 fewer games, and yet this season's going to feel so much worse than it did last year.
That's every team in the West, though, because like the Warriors are going to win about the same amount of games they did last year. It may not even make the playoffs, you know.
Yeah, I think they'll win more because they won 44 last year. They're at 44 now.
Oh, yeah, they're going to win more for sure. Yeah, everybody feels bad. The Rockets are going to win 40 games and not even get in the play-in.
Yeah.
They're at 39 and 40. They're likely to have a better record than the Thunder did last season, you know, and will miss. So everything just feels like a little bit worse for everybody, except if you're Minnesota, Denver, OKC. Like those are the 3 teams that like all feel pretty good right now. Yeah, I was looking at Jonas Valanciunas' game logs. He played, let's see, he's only played more than 25 minutes once since basically the beginning of January. And he played 3 minutes and 55 seconds against Phoenix. Like they will just abandon him if they need to. He played 10 minutes in that OKC game where the Thunder beat them by 7. You know, they will not play him. And I think that it's a series where they would probably just play a lot of Larry Nance. Because I just don't think that they feel like they can compete with the Thunder, especially if Josh continues to be aggressive. Because they tried that with Jonas on him.
Yeah.
And he was just so aggressive that they couldn't continue to do it.
Yeah, and I think that bodes well for the Thunder.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've liked Larry Nance in the past. But he is not someone who like super scares you. He's shooting 41% from 3, but he only takes 1 3 a game.
Mm-hmm.
Valanciunas actually takes more 3s per game. So
that's wild.
I think that would be a decent matchup of the options. And then the Suns, I think it would maybe end up looking juicier than it really was. I mean, this Suns team, you know, they had that run where they won 3 of 4. They're beating good teams, but man, good teams do not like that was a kind of must-win game for them last night. That would have really made a difference in terms of them avoiding the play-in.
They completely laid an egg,
and it was at home.
So bad. Can you imagine being a Suns fan and being at that game and sitting there as Drew Eubanks is your only scorer as the first quarter ends, and then what's going on?
The most annoying thing is that they do make a run in the second half, and yet like they're never going to get close enough to actually win.
They got it to 7, and it was like just far enough where you're like, you're probably. I would be annoyed.
Yeah.
If I were a Suns fan, like I wouldn't even feel like happy that they did it. Be like, what really now? Like, really, you're going to show up now? No, don't even do this. Just lose by 20. Like, don't even do this.
Yeah, Booker was 1 of 11. KD was 8 of 22. So they were combined 9 of 33.
Goodness. Yeah, and if the Thunder beat the Suns in round 1 this year, I mean, it's just plays more into the narrative that, you know, Kevin's just going to be begging for that MLE money, you know, after this contract's over. You know,
it's far away. He still has 2 more years making $50 million. I think he will be off the Suns sooner than that.
Given his track record, I would say.
Yeah, there's no way you're an owner like Matt Ishbia willing to do all these extreme moves and you're just going to like sit back and
let this
not
thing
do anything,
just completely die. Yeah, there's no way. I agree. I don't know what they're going to do,
because really, like their best option, if the thing is run it back, is to pay like one of the biggest tax bills, because they would have to re-sign Grayson Allen, they'd have to re-sign Royce O'Neal.
What's Grayson Allen make? Is like Grace is 4 years, $80 million off the table for Grayson Allen?
No, I mean, I think that's realistic at this point. He's become one of the best shooters. He was 0 of 8 from 3 last night. But
Yeah.
For the season, I mean, someone's going to pay him.
Someone will pay him.
He's hitting 46% of his threes on 6 attempts per game.
Would you rather pay Isaiah Joe?
Yes.
$16 million or Grayson Allen 4 years, 80?
Bro, I'd rather pay Isaiah Joe 480.
All right. Oh, okay.
I don't want to be rooting for Grayson Allen.
All right. Okay. All right. That's the right answer. I just want to make sure.
However, I think there are teams, and some of those teams that, like, if the Pistons strike out, I mean, they could use a shooter, like a real shooter, not a bunch of fake ones. They could use a real shooter. Grayson Allen's a real shooter.
Oh man, that is funny to me. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it's very funny to me. And it's also like the context that he's in. I mean, he's a career 41% from three. His worst year was his rookie season, where he only played 10 minutes a game and took 2 threes a game and made 32%. Every other year, he's 39% or better, and having a career year right now, shooting the basketball
and averaging 3 assists per game. Now, part of that is context because they don't have a point guard, and so
I mean,
there's more opportunities. But
all the stats are context for him, though. Like, they're just like he's in a pretty good situation because he has 3 guys that generate a lot of attention, and so
maybe he can be the man in Detroit.
Move over Cade Cunningham. Here comes Grayson Allen.
That's right. The franchise.
Oh man. Yeah, I cannot wait. I can't wait for the play-in. The play-in, especially in the East. In the East, if it's Philly, Miami, like holy smokes. Like that's amazing. The Chicago Bulls Hawks, you might as well just like not even televise it. Just don't even worry about it. Don't go to the effort. But every other playing game is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'd like to see Philly against the Bucks. And then I'd like to see the Heat against the Celtics because I don't think the Sixers have a chance against the Celtics.
Yeah.
Whereas at least Miami, Boston, you could pretend based on what happened last year. Like, ooh, what's going to happen?
And like for Boston, if they really want to win the title this year, like they almost like need to exercise those demons.
Yeah.
Early on. So I think that to me that's ideal. Yeah, Philly beats Miami, gets to play the Bucks, which they could make round 2. If Giannis is not, because the odds of Giannis being right at the start of the playoffs with this calf injury are very low. Like even if he can play, he's not going to.
Well, also the gap between these teams, like the Sixers have 45 wins. They've won 6 in a row. They're only 3 games back in the win column from the Bucks.
Crazy, isn't that?
If you compare that same comparison in the West, the Suns are 9 games back of Denver, 7-2.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Philly could absolutely beat Milwaukee, and especially now with Giannis's injury.
Yeah. Well, the Sixers they've won 6 in a row. They've looked pretty good.
And then if you do that, now you're getting the winner of the Knicks and Pacers in the second round.
Yeah.
Knicks, who are going to be out without Julius Randle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have a scenario where it's like Sixers and Knicks in the second round. One of those teams is going to the conference finals.
God, I feel so sorry for Sixers fans now that are thinking this way and feeling like we can finally get to the conference finals.
It's our year. I do think this season, more than a couple of recent seasons, is primed for like an Atlanta Hawks type of run from someone.
Yeah, like if it could be the Pacers, that make the conference finals, and we're like, whoa, they've arrived. Tyrese Halliburton, and then I could look at the Hawks. Like, look,
and then they give Siakam like $50 million a year.
Oh yeah, if you're Siakam's agent, you are just hoping for some crazy run to happen because he could cash in. Totally, that's crazy. We have a couple super chats to read. One from our guy Chatamus. 33, getting to celebrate my birthday by listening to my favorite podcast, talking about a great Thunder win. Happy birthday, Chad.
Happy birthday, Chadamus.
Shout out to Chad. Really good dude. He's the guy who he took his grandma to the game, and they got to sit courtside after Clay Bennett gave them his seats.
Oh, they didn't get the Michelob Ultra upgrade?
No, but that would have been really cool. And then from Hot Spot Casino, fire! We would have lost the game if Sack was fully healthy. We have to play better as a team. We should be second at the end of the year. I mean,
I just it would have been such a different game because if they were fully healthy, their defense would have been significantly worse.
Yeah,
because now you have who is guarding Shea?
You're
Malik
not playing
Monk?
Keon. You're probably not playing Keon. You're probably not going to play. You're not playing one of Davion or Keon.
Yeah, and so you have one of those guys, which means that no one can guard J-Dub on the. I mean, I guess you would put Keegan Murray on him, who would be their best option. But I just think that would have been a totally different game. I actually think it worked out for Sacramento.
Yeah,
because having those two perimeter guards, where you can like switch and either one of them can try to guard Shea, or J-Dub or anyone else on the Thunder. Like I actually think that worked out for Sacramento.
Also, Keon went bonkers in this game.
I know he went 9 of 15. Like that, a lot of things that happened, especially in the first half. 14 of 31 is complete outlier.
Yeah,
not crazy. Just for that team, but for the specific roster that was on the court.
Yeah, it's insane.
I do agree they need to be better. They need to be better when it comes playoff time.
Yeah, they just need to be
can't
sharp.
Get down by 20 in a first half.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Although it made for a very fun game.
Yeah, it did. But no, I share the sentiment that like this team needs to play like they were playing in January, February to actually hit their ceiling. They cannot play like they've played recently.
Yeah.
And again, part of that was Shea's injury. But even last night, if they play like that in a series against New Orleans, like they're going to lose some games. They have to be a lot sharper. Like Josh has to be better in a series against New Orleans.
Yeah.
But again, April games don't matter. So I'm trying not to worry too much about how they're playing right now.
Well, and they won. Also the most important factor in all of this is that Shea looked good.
Yeah, Shea did. I mean, that had to have been his most free throws of the season, right?
20.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll check. I'll check.
He's a free throw merchant. Don't you?
A free throw merchant. Yes, that was.
Yeah,
previous high 18.
Yeah. And it felt like I said earlier, he could have taken a lot more than that. Even he took on a lot of contact, like a lot of like contact at his like chest and body in particular that they just weren't calling at all. But I don't know. It just bodes well for the Thunder to have him back, scoring 40, looking good, playing well on both ends. It's like, okay, all right, now you feel like you have a chance. Like a week or 2 weeks ago when he was playing, and it was like, oh gosh, like he's scoring like 13 points. Like this isn't looking so good. Like those teams, I don't believe had a chance in the first round. This team, even though they didn't look like amazing last night, still there were points of that game where you're like, okay, this team can win a first round series. Like this is the team that can do it. They looked like that team at different spurts last night. And so hopefully they can put together a nice little stretch here before they start the playoffs. All right.
So real quickly for tonight.
Yeah.
If the Nuggets win,
mm-hmm.
their magic number for the number 1 seed would be 2.
Okay.
Which means magic number is just any combination of Denver wins and Minnesota OKC losses.
Yeah.
If Minnesota wins and OKC beats the Spurs, Nuggets would fall to 3rd place, and their path to the 1 seed would require winning the last 2 games, Minnesota losing its last 2, and OKC losing 1 of 2, so close to 0% chance. So if Minnesota wins tonight, we have to kind of refocus on trying to get the 1 seed, which would still, I think, be possible, but it would require Minnesota losing out. So, yeah, basically root for Denver. We need the Nuggets to win. And they are at home. I don't know if Jamal Murray back? He's still not back.
I think did he not play last night?
Let me see. I wasn't checking in on the Nuggets Jazz game.
He didn't check in. Yeah, he played.
Yeah, he was back. He
Yeah, I
played
was gonna say,
25
I thought he
minutes.
was back. Yeah.
Well, I hope he plays second night of back to back.
Yeah, me too. Aaron Gordon was out last night.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see. Oh, another weird stat before we go that I just need to make sure everybody knows. The Boston Celtics shot 0 free throws last night, and the Bucks shot 2 free throws last night. 2 free throws in
That's
one
tough.
game, which is just bizarre.
I like that.
I'll like that. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button right now. We got a lot of people watching on YouTube this morning, so please hit that like button. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and we'll talk to you guys again on Friday.
Bye.
Bye.